Good afternoon once again, everyone, today. Again, my name is Amanda Christian. I'm the Complete Streets Advisory Committee manager, and I hope I received some information that I was a little muffled in my sound, so I hope that you can hear me a little better now. And we have a very jam-packed meeting for you today, and we will go ahead and get started. I just want to welcome everyone, and we are going to forego the round robin introductions for this meeting, just because we have a pretty packed agenda and we want to make sure that we get to everyone today. So again, welcome. Use the information bar, chat bar, if you want to send any questions in. And with that, let me just forward and advance the PowerPoint presentation. Our first presentation today will be, as usual, MPO current efforts. We have Ms. Stephanie Garcia will be talking about two topics today. The first of which is tactical urbanism. And I'll go ahead and start her presentation. This is her first slide.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Say yes or raise your hand.
Yes, we can hear you, Stephanie. We can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Perfect. So I will start with a quick build. So following with our update back, I would say 2 months ago, we selected the project. We selected the quick build for 2021. And it's the city of Deerfield Beach, the lucky winner. Well, it's not lucky because actually we went through a prioritization process in order to select this project. And the city of Deerfield Beach actually submitted a great project located in Tether neighborhood. And if we go to the next slide, I think we can start from there, looking at the map. Yes, thank you. I think that one is more useful. Okay, so as you can see, the project is more or less 0.7 miles. It is located between Sample Road and Northeast 44th Street, close to I-95. This location, it is interesting because it has actually 3 schools in the area. We have Deerfield High School in the north. Then we have Tether Elementary School in the middle, just next to the project. And we have in the south, Crystal Lake Middle School. So kids, parents, and teachers are actually using this corridor, either walking or driving or biking. The other quality that this project has is that it's just next to Broward Health North, a hospital of 400 beds. And the other quality that has is that it is within the high injury network. And it is within 2 bundle areas that were identified in the Computer Science Master Plan. One is bundle area A and B. So it is a project that really needs our attention in terms of biking and walking demand. The other quality of this project is that what we are trying to do with the city of Deerfield Beach is actually improving the visibility of the users of the road and slowing down traffic. How we are going to do this, of course, with the support of the municipality and the community, we want to implement different intersection improvements along the corridor, where you can see that in those points or dots identified, those are the intersection improvements located. And of course, wayfinding, informational signage, to guide the community where exactly they can cross or where it's safer to cross, traffic calming features, crosswalks, enhancement through decorative surface treatments. So of course, we're gonna see colors, and the idea is to work with the community in order to make this possible. And actually, I want to give you an update. We are working with the city to host a workshop, an in-person workshop on Saturday, June 5th And if you can attend an in-person workshop, we also are planning to host a virtual meeting on Wednesday, June 9th. So if you want to learn more about this project, you can always participate and learn what exactly we are going to do in this area. Your feedback is really important. And this could be also an opportunity to learn about the implementation of tactical urbanism projects in your area. So of course, we will share this information through an email because we want CSAC members to be part of it. And just, stay tuned. And if we go to the next presentation. Thank you, Amanda. Of course, everyone wants to hear about the Let's Go Biking Challenge that was held in March 2021, thanks to the Florida Bike Month. We work with different partners, as you can see in the slide. We work, of course, we Recycle Bike Exchange. They are always our partner. With South Florida Commuter Services, with Broward B-Cycle, and we have additional partners. As you can see, we have the participation of bike shops, different bike shops located in Hollywood, in Weston, in the city of Fort Lauderdale. And we also had the support of the W of Fort Lauderdale. In this case, we do have different prices and for two different categories. So the first category, as you can see, is for the most number of miles ridden in the month of March. And the winner was Hector Vasquez with approximate of 1,000 miles. That's a lot for a month. And of course, he was the lucky winner of one night stay at the W Fort Lauderdale hotel. We also had and we go to the next slide. Other winners from the social media challenge, people who actually, went on a bike ride and posted photos of their bike ride with their family, or just, pictures of their bike. As we can see in one of the pictures submitted by Jesus Fuentes. Also, the mayor of the city of Weston participated in this challenge, and he was a lucky winner of one of the prizes. And if we go to the next slide. Perfect, thank you, Amanda. We did create a Strava Let's Go Biking Club in order to understand how exactly the participants were participating and how many miles they were riding. And this was really successful because, as you can see, we had a lot of people registering or joining the club. And this is a tool that we're going to keep using for future events. So we are really glad that the community actually joined the club in order to learn more about the Let's Go Biking event. Next slide. Thank you. And of course, we have our lucky winners. They pick up their prizes 2 weeks ago to their different sponsors. This is one of the winners. He actually won the third place with more or less 700 miles. And he was a lucky winner of a $150 discount in the bike shop of Hollywood. Of course, the most important here is, we were able to engage the community in these type of activities. We had the support of our different partners. And most importantly, we received emails. And actually, we have one of the CSAC members, Lenny Human. She participated in the challenge of, the most number of miles ridden. And we had some comments. Hey, I wasn't expecting to ride all these miles for the month of March, and this is really encouraging my family to go bike more and explore what Broward County has to offer. So we are really happy that through this event we were able to first encourage people to bike more, and second, show what the county has to offer in terms of facilities, because there are many facilities out there. So we are really happy of the outcome. And of course, we are working towards next year's event. Thank you.
That's Stephanie Garcia's contact information if you would like some more information. Thank you, Stephanie. Our next presentation is going to be given by Doris Spann. I know a lot of you know Mrs. Spann, but if you would be so kind, Mrs. Spann, to give yourself a brief introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us about the presentation that you're going to be giving. I know that you're a pretty vocal pedestrian safety activist, so we're really glad to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Am I being heard okay? All right. So you folks first came to know me back in 2014. And I think actually in 2016, I was pretty silent between 2014 and 2016, but 2016 was the first time I came before the MPO advocating for a signalized pedestrian crossing at the point where my husband was killed. So fast forward to 2018 is where the Don't Forget Willie Foundation was formed. And this first slide looks somewhat like where we used to live in Miami on Biscayne Boulevard. That's the kind of vibe that we had before moving to Tamarack and becoming homeowners. So if we could go to the next slide, then I'll give you a little bit more background. This is really how it all started. I don't know the officer in the foreground. In the background is my husband. And that's approximately 3 hours after the last time I saw him alive. And he's under the tarp, October 2nd, 2014, Commercial Boulevard, which is very busy, very deadly. It's very difficult for crossing, even that crosswalk, even though my husband was mid-block. And this is in Tamarack, Florida, going from the north side of Commercial onto the Sunrise side to the VA clinic in Sunrise. Next slide. So in 2018, after talking to different community groups and going for the signalized crosswalk, it did not happen, but that was not the end of the story. And what pretty much propelled me into the foundation was reading on someone's page, and it was a tribute. And I know they were trying to be kind, but what they said was it was the end of a sad story. And I think that was the time when the county did put a plaque in the VA clinic to recognize my husband. And I thought, well, my husband really didn't die just for a plaque, as much as I appreciate that. So what could be learned from this? Well, let's go out and talk to folks about pedestrian safety. And I'm not an expert like all of you on the panel. You know about engineering, you know about urban planning and all that. I'm just a regular person. My husband was a regular person, but I believe that our streets can be safer, and it often is a social justice issue. So we want to promote safe bus stops, road signaling, and signage. And Vision Zero, I caught hold of that, and that is what we're working toward, and that is part of our vision. Next slide. So the foundation participates, as I said, in awareness and advocacy in local municipalities, not only Tamarack, but surrounding communities as well. The MPO I talked about, you know, I'm a member of CSAC and the Citizens Advisory Committee, and I'm plugged in now, or the foundation is plugged into the Vision Zero network. The networking we do has expanded somewhat. I am doing a presentation to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee this Wednesday. I've connected to some chambers of commerce because folks have to get to work by foot, by bus, however they get there. It's a great place to network and to let folks know that our streets can be safer. Veterans organizations, that's how I started, but we've moved beyond that. And I'm a fellow this year with America Walks Walking College, which has expanded just my understanding quite a bit. We're just in the second going on third week, but that's an important connection. Community outreach, youth groups, senior citizens group, faith-based organizations. By now, everybody knows I'm an evangelist. Let's Go Biking, which we did participate in last year. And the Walking Papers Scholarship is, we did our first one last year. We awarded our first scholarship. And we'll see a little bit about that in the next slides, couple of slides to come. Next slide, please. There's Miss Stephanie, and there I am. That's Let's Go Biking last year in Tamarack. And I was so happy to have a chance to not just have a table there, but to get to talk to some youths. And that was really setting the groundwork for us going into the scholarship program. These are just, this presentation here is something that I would do when I go out into community groups. So a lot of it is very familiar to you, but not so much in the community. I was speaking with just on Friday, a commissioner in a surrounding community. And I said, let me tell you about Vision Zero. Have you ever heard of it? And that commissioner had not heard of Vision Zero. So as much as we communicate and the word is out there are scores of people who do not know about it. Next slide, please. So here's our journal, and it started simply as a project for young people between 10 and 17 when they're awarded small scholarships. And we do it $50 to $100, but we do it on an ongoing basis. And this is in working class families where it makes a difference, but we're not just giving away money. The youth have to commit to helping a mobility impaired senior. So they take this journal, and there's 66 pages in it with motivational words every day, but the idea is for them to document their journey and to learn from each other. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, back to slide. Right, so this all you know, but keep in mind, we go out to folks who really don't have an idea about Vision Zero, but the foundation is firmly planted in that. Just 150-pound pedestrians are no match for a moving ton of metal, but that doesn't mean they don't try. And my husband was a senior, was African-American, did use a cane. So all of those made him a statistic of it likely to happen, but he was much more than that to me. So then our sidewalks, a lot of us, when I take public transportation frequently, and I frequently walk, and on the sidewalks, we as pedestrians do have to compete with the bicyclists a lot of times because they're competing with the cars. So we need to pay attention to our sidewalks, get them up to par. And our bus stops, I personally don't think that they are safe enough. Some of them are far too close to the streets, are not enclosed or covered. You all know a lot more about that, but when I talk to just regular folks, they don't feel safe at the bus stops in many of our communities. Next slide. So this is what we all know, pedestrian fatalities going up. Even last year, it was interesting to learn in one of our conferences that the traffic fatalities went up even though we're on a lockdown. On the other side of that, this is purposely left with just numbers, because when we're talking about fatalities, yes, the numbers are important because we can see that fatalities and serious accidents, serious crashes are going up, serious injuries as a result of crashes. But we want folks to think not just about numbers, replace those numbers with the name of a person, a family member, a colleague who you know was seriously injured or was killed in a roadway crash. And then we take that information, and what we're doing at the foundation is building a memorial wall to tell the stories of folks all around Broward County. Next slide. So this is what we came to the party for, the Vision Zero resolution from the city of Tamarack. If I could read just one important section of it. Section 2, the city of Tamarack hereby adopts a goal of eliminating traffic deaths and serious injuries by 2040. So we put a year on it, and endorses Vision Zero as a comprehensive and collaborative approach that involves all city departments in order to achieve this goal. So right now, what's happening is that the city and the community development director, I was in conversation with, and they are developing it based on the multimodal transportation plan. And right now it's either on its way to the county or they're waiting to hear back from the county about the scope of the project. The community chat is something that my Commissioner Gellin, put together after I did approach him for the Vision Zero. They adopted the resolution in February and then started to have community chats in April. And there was a lot of good feedback as a result of the chats. Next slide, please. So all of this, you know, the Safe Streets Summit is really what got this going, because the Vision Zero session that I attended, Ms. Strayham said, okay, so what are you all going to do? And it's like, well, my mayor, my commissioners have always been supportive. Let's see. So I told them about it. It was unanimously passed, the resolution, and they are adopting the Vision Zero action plan. So the Safe Streets, it really does work. Next slide, please. And that's the last slide. So, as I said, I will be presenting at BPAC on Wednesday, and BPAC is making a recommendation to the County Commission to adopt Vision Zero resolution, including updating the Complete Streets policies and guidelines with safe system approach. I did tell you that I'm an America Walks Walking College Fellow. So this is this is something that the Walking College wants, is to contact the Transportation Secretary. And you all know a lot more about this than I do, but the manual for uniform traffic control devices is outdated. Many professionals feel, if you feel the same way, please do contact accordingly. The feedback on our community chat was that journal needs to get into schools. And even though it's a companion project with our scholarship program, a lot of folks who came onto the chat would like to see it in schools. So we're working on that. And we ought to have more Vision Zero community chats just for regular folks like me and the foundation. Thanks for your time. I hope I didn't go over.
No, that was great. Thank you so much for that presentation. And do you want to share just an email address with the group if somebody wants to get in touch with you?
Yes, my personal email address is Doris, middle initial P as in Peter, span@gmail.com. The email address for the foundation is rememberingwillie@gmail.com. And there, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mrs. Stanley. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Just quickly, Doris, I want to say thank you again for presenting and sharing your story with the group. Really inspirational to me, and I'm happy that some of the things that you're doing have helped you with your efforts. So thank you so much for coming to us. Are we taking questions now, Amanda, or?
Yeah, we certainly can. I don't see anyone. If anybody has a question, they can go ahead and raise their hand. I'll keep an eye out. Just give me one second. I don't think anybody's got any questions at the moment, but we'll also have a brief opportunity at the end of the meeting for Q&A if anybody has a question that they come up with. While we're proceeding.
Thank you.
Again, Mrs. Smith. And we're going to start the main portion of the presentations, our big, our 3 presentations. We're going to start that as per usual with Mentimeter, which Stephanie Garcia will be managing again for us. This is where we will have some interactive questions for the audience and participants that are gleaned from the presentations. And so the voting code, it's menti.com, excuse me, the web address is menti.com/8SS49TAUS4. And the voting code is 5176 7816. And if you have a smartphone, you want to go ahead and click that QR code. That'll bring you right to the ability to answer these questions and sort of play along on your phone. Do you have anything, Stephanie, that you want to start off with, or may we start the first presentation, which will be I-595 Arterial Connectivity Study, Greenway Connections with Mr. Winston Harris from RSNH.
Before we start the presentation, I just want to quickly just kind of introduce Amanda, if you allow me. I attended a workshop that was held by the FDOT about a month ago, and I was totally impressed by the work that they're doing, because this is a 95 connectivity study that was initially more geared to traffic congestion, but what they're doing for multimodal and especially those connections at the Greenway, I was blown away. So I want to commend the FDOT for doing that, and the consultant as well. So that's why I just got a quick intro. Amanda, take it away.
I see Mr. Harris.
Okay.
And
Okay.
You're joined by Tom Long. Maybe correct?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Ricardo, for attending our workshop and for the comments that we received. We really want to present what we have so that we can get comments from as many sources as possible regarding this study that we're doing, working with FDOT and the MPO along the arterials that are along 595. With me today is some members of our group to help answer questions, but also have Chan Wong, who is our project manager from the FDOT. And I don't know if Chan, if you want to say a few words before we get started.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Winston. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Chan Wong. I'm the FDOT project manager for the arterial connectivity study along the I-595 corridor. I want to briefly refresh everyone here on the key objective of this study. So currently, quite a few of the I-595 State Road 84 interchanges are experiencing severe congestion bottlenecks that impede some of the very heavy north-south arterial traffic. And the goal of this project is to thoroughly study the corridor between 136th Avenue and State Road 70 and identify implementable short and long-term congestion relief improvements, as well as improvements along the New River Greenway corridor. So after 1.5 years into the study, we are finally reaching a very important milestone. That is, we have come up with a slew of proposed mitigation concepts. And particularly in this meeting, we would like to share with you some of the concept considerations the team has developed for the New River Greenway crossings. So without further ado, I'll let Winston begin the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Well, my first time here presenting at the Complete Street. We had a couple questions, that was mentioned. So if you probably want to hit on that first question, where we're going to talk about the Greenway, and that first question relates to just how familiar you folks online are with the Greenway. All right. Okay.
We're mute, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I will just repeat the question. How familiar are you with the New River Greenway? Choose one answer. I choose somewhat familiar, but I never used it. So which one is your option? We have 13 answers, 14 now.
from what I can see, I guess most people are not familiar, are only somewhat familiar. So yes, we'll bear that in mind as we try to present our information here on the Greenway.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay.
And probably only one person has used it. Okay. Or two. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to give first a quick brief overview of the project. We'll talk about some of the stakeholders that we have met with. Our current task, which is trying to develop the mitigation concepts, and then we'll briefly touch on what are our next steps moving forward on the project. Next slide, please. Okay, the arterial connectivity study along 595. The focus is really on those 8 north-south crossing arterials, starting in the west there with 136th Avenue, Flamingo Road, Hiatus, Nabil, Pine Island University, and US 441. And we're also looking at State Road 84. For the focus of this particular presentation, we're going to focus on the Greenway, which is just north of I-595 there. It's shown in green, the green lines along there. That's going to be the focus for our discussion, but we'll also let you know of what some of the general findings that we have had so far on the study. Next slide, please. Okay, this study really originated there was an outcry for improving congestion along those north-south arterials, particularly coming from some of the cities within the study area. What can be done to improve congestion? So that was really the impetus for the project. But of course, moving forward with the project, while that was a focus, we also looked at safety. So we found a lot of locations where we could improve and adopt some safety improvements also, and other deficiencies as we went along. It was really multimodal. So we saw some transit improvements. We even saw some freight improvements at one particular location. But the really focus of it and where it originated from was, trying to provide congestion relief along the arterials. For the most part, we're trying to stay away from 595, not to impact 595, but not in all. In some cases, we do touch it a little bit, but we try to stay away from 595. Next slide, please. Okay, as John said, we are 18 months into the project. We kicked off back in October of 2019. We have done most of the data collection already. We have met with a lot of the stakeholders, and we have been developing our countermeasures, mitigation concepts to provide relief, congestion relief, and improve the Greenway crossings. The next few months after this, we hope to wrap up in about October of this year. We will put together an implementation package of projects that can move forward to the next stage. Bear in mind that we are in a planning stage of a project. The next stages will be more P&E type work or design work for implementation. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just summarizing some of the extensive public outreach that we have done. We met with all the cities within the corridor. We met with the MPO board before. The MPO stressed on us the need to try to have a broader outreach. So in some of last year, we had a public outreach, an online survey where just about anybody living within the corridor could provide comments and highlight issues, whether it be safety issues, operational issues, transit issues. Coming out of study, some of the key comments we got were related to congestion. Congestion turned out to be the #1 stuff. Safety and connectivity. Those are the 3 big things coming out of that outreach. Next slide. Next slide just talks about some of the deficiencies in more specific. The Greenway we have it up top here, since this is of concern. There was talk about trying to signalize the Greenway crossings, make it safer for peds and bike movements. Connectivity, there's some gaps in the Greenway, and we're going to talk about that. And then, just trying to connect those areas where you have missing ped and bike facilities throughout, sidewalks and bicycle lanes. And transit, a lot of bus stops So we're looking at short-term improvements. So even though, the main focus is long-term, we're also looking at some short-term improvements. Yes, you can go to the next slide. Just continue with the deficiencies in terms of roadway. We had 8 roadway segments looking at least 3 of them today are failing significantly. Our horizon year, design year that we're looking out into the future is 2045. By that year, almost all will be failing. 6 of them will be, really at, what we call failing conditions. In terms of intersections, within our study era, we were looking at about 1 mile north of the mile south of corridor, but about 40 intersections, at least 17 of them, half of them failing today. By 2045, of course, if nothing is done, 30 plus of them will be, at a very bad condition and failing. In terms of safety, there again, a lot of locations, 36 locations we could identify with high crash history. So certainly safety is something we want to improve along the corridor. And bicycle and pedestrian crashes were among those significantly. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Greenway now. So just highlighting here, so the heavy green line that you see there, just north of 595, that's the Greenway. It runs north, starting from the west up to University Drive. At University Drive, there's a gap on University Drive. Then it goes down University, runs along Nova Drive, back north, again along Davie Road, and then continues east. So we'll talk about that gap, and then we'll also talk about some connectivity that's missing. Next slide. Okay, yeah, this was an interactive slide. So that's highlighting the 6 intersections, crossings that we'll be looking at. If you hit the next one, there should be a line running. Touch again. Yeah, right. The missing gap there shows up in red. And then the connectivity to State Road 7. Yeah, some of the slides are a little bit interactive. So you can go to the next slide now, please. Okay, so some of the considerations. This is just a typical Greenway crossing here. We're just using Hiatus Road as an example. This is how the crossing is set up now today. The Greenway is just north of the New River Canal, that canal as you see there, and the designated crossing is just south, on the south side of the canal. So you can see that circuitous route that people have to do to get to the designated crossings. And so of course, that's creates some issues. Some people choose not to do that movement. They will cross directly across. And of course, all of these north-south arterials have very heavy movement. So pedestrians and bicyclists alike are in direct conflict with the heavy north-south traffic along these crossing arterials. You can do the next. Okay. So some of the challenges when we try to look at how can we improve these crossings for these north-south arterials, of course, the big thing is to try to reduce the conflicts with the cars, trucks along the corridor, and of course that requires some kind of a grade separation. Trying to minimize any impacts to the arterial, because the arterials are heavy. We want to make sure we protect pedestrians and bicycles crossings, but we don't want to disrupt the traffic so that traffic backs up, significantly, And of course, providing connections to encourage the use of the Greenway for access to all. So we want everyone to be able to access it. So there are some missing north-south ped and bike crossings. So we're trying to provide those connections also. And then there are constructability issues, of course, trying not to impact 595. The canal crossing makes the geometry a little bit difficult. And whatever we do, we want to make sure that it's at least attractive so that the cities and so forth can, will accept these crossings. Next slide, please. Okay. So we looked at both short-term and long-term improvements. In terms of short-term improvements, one of the ideas was to try to, I think this slide is interactive. So if you press it, you should see a yellow line running first, I think. Yeah, okay. Right. So that yellow line shows how people cross today. with this proposed short-term crossing, we're thinking of a pedestrian hybrid beacon that would be, in most cases, just north of the existing Greenway crossing. What we're trying to do is put a signal there. It's a beacon type crossing, otherwise called a hawk. A similar facility as this is now being proposed on Flamingo Road. If you hit the button again, you'll see the route in blue. Right. Okay. So you'd go north, cross safely. You'd now have a signal. So you could safely cross. We carried it a little bit north, so it's crossing we're trying to reduce the distance so that you have to cross. And you can. But it's like a circuitous in that you have to go up, down, and come around. But certainly, it's a much safer crossing, and it's we see it as a short-term improvement. It's already been looked at for implementation of Flamingo Road, and we see it as a possibility that most of the other crossings, including 136, Nabil, Pine Island. Next slide, please. Yeah. Then we start looking at the more long-term improvements. This we can either go above or below. This first concept looks at going below grade. So you'd have ramps on either side to take you below the north-south arterial. Again, we're using hiatus as the example. And we'll have some renderings to make this look, you can see it a little bit better, but what you're doing is going below grade under the ground, or I should say below the roadway. So the impact, ped and bike users will flow freely across, and cars will flow freely along the north-south arterials. So you have the maximum protection for peds and zero impacts to auto traffic along the surface road. Of course, there are some drawbacks to this in that you're going under, and so there will be some regular maintenance required in terms of drainage, in terms of lighting. You want to make sure it keep well lit, but you can also do other things to some. There will be some, you can put gates and you can put things to make it look attractive, as you can see in some of these examples that we have here. Certainly, and we see several locations where we can install this. 136th Avenue, University Drive, and we have it as an option also at Flamingo, Hiatus, and Pine Island. But this is really provide very good protection for peds, bikes, and autos. Okay, again, I think here, right? And that green line is just showing how it would connect to the north-south sidewalks. You can go to the next one. So we went below grade. Of course, the other idea is going above grade. And we have a couple of examples of these already. You guys probably know of one. There's a similar one at University, Miramar Parkway, where you go above ground. You can have different ramp designs on either side. Here we're showing illustrating, just for illustrative purposes, where you could have a spiral ramp on one side of the roadway, and you could have a linear ramp on the other side. And there's a lot you can do, different materials, different construction to make this look as attractive as can be. Here we're showing several examples from various locations. Of course, the main issue that people always have with this is that, okay, it's a much longer distance to walk. But studies have shown that, people still do use it because it provides this direct connection out, where they want to go. And then the other drawback is visual impacts. If it's around communities, residential communities, you get a typical feedback that, hey, visual intrusion is a problem. But certainly, this we think would be a good option. Certainly, again, very good protection for pedestrians and bicyclists using it, and little disruption, no disruption to vehicular traffic. Okay. Just want to touch on a couple other things. We know all the current north-south arterials do connect to the Greenway, except for State Road 7. State Road 7 now has no connection. So we are proposing as part of this project to connect the Greenway to a sidewalk facility along State Road 7. So this is showing the concept that we have in mind. If you hit the down button again, you will get right. Yeah, that yellow line shows the Greenway. It runs under. We're at State Road 7 here, US 441. It goes under, but there's no connection to any sidewalks along along State Road 7. Hit the button again. We're hoping to connect it, build the sidewalk, provide protection for users of the sidewalk, and connect it to the Greenway. We know the county has a project that's also proposing to provide a similar connection, so we'll coordinate with them on this. And we're also looking at a possible connection, same thing on the east side of State Road 7 also. Next, just a couple more slides. Yeah, this is the missing link section between University Drive on the west there and Davie on the east. There's no connection. The Greenway, you actually have to go south on University, then across Nova and then back up Davie. So you have a big circuitous route to go to if you're going to stay on the Greenway. So I want to try to see if we can close this gap. And we think certainly, I mean, there's a possibility of doing it. If you hit the button there, you'll see a yellow line run first. Okay, good. So that's the connection we're looking at. Would continue it just north of the canal again and provide a connection at the sewer lock there. That's one option. You could go directly over the sewer lock. We have a second option if you hit the button again, where we're saying if that's not feasible, then we could also do a crossing just to the west of sewer lock to complete that connection for the Greenway. Okay, that's it. Certainly we can take your questions. We can take questions now. We have members of our group here, or we can wait until later on, whatever you choose the best. Although we did have a second poll question that I think I missed out. So probably we can take the second poll question also.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead? Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah.
That was actually really interesting for me. I appreciate that. Stephanie, if we can go ahead and do the second Mentimeter question for this presentation, I will stop sharing my screen and offer it to you.
Thank you, Amanda. So the second question that we have is, what do you think are the main issues of concern for the new River Greenway? Choose all that apply, and the options are: needs more amenities along it, such as benches, lighting, and trees. Needs more access points to the Greenway. Needs safer roadway crossings. Needs continuous roadway crossings with no vehicular conflicts. And the last option is none of the above or other. And you can use the comment section to provide other reasons. So it seems we have the most popular one is, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. The most popular one is needs continuous roadway crossings with no vehicular conflicts.
Yeah, I would say this is kind of consistent with what we're finding. People, the crossings are the biggest issue. So if we can get people safely through those crossings, and that's why we've been spending a lot of effort on that, I think we would have, achieved probably one of our biggest goals on this project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would comment something else. We always need end of trip facilities, and I think as part of the amenities is bike racks. So it is good to, to be able to park your bike at the destination, just to rest and maybe sit. So I think that's something that we can also think about.
Yes, I mean, and I would say on our team, we also have folks who actually use the bikeway. And one of the things they brought up to us, the Greenway, was lighting at nighttime is really lacking. So that's one big thing that also came up. with respect to Greenway in terms of amenities need. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So thank you everyone for participating in the poll. And let's go back to the next presentation.
Actually, there's one more slide left of this presentation. I'm going to go ahead and pull it back up. And if you wouldn't mind, Winston, just going over the next steps.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So we have about 4 months to go in the study. So what we're hoping to do now is to finalize these concepts for improvements, both as you have seen for the Greenway, but we also have concepts for improving operations, particularly at the interchanges where those north-south arterials meet 084 going on to 595. So we want to finalize those. We got a lot of comments, a lot of good feedback from workshops and from meeting people like you. Incorporate that. Then we're going to try to package them into projects for moving on to the next stage. So moving on from this planning level into a project development stage, or some may even go into a design stage. But trying to package them so we can find funding sources to move on to the next stage. So we hope to do that in the May through August period, and then we'll be having, when we move into September, October, we'll be having some follow-up meetings. We have meetings with the MPO to show the findings, and then hopefully we'll wrap up by the end of October, beginning of November.
Winston, I just have a quick question. First of all, thank you for that. Great, Sean, Winston, great work here. One of the things about this Greenway, it's a 10 mile, I think it's 10 or 11 miles long, but it's really disconnected. So what you have really is just a 10 1-mile segments that don't work very well. So I'm glad you're looking at those things, and very impressive with the things that you're doing. About that gap, I saw that you're thinking about putting that Greenway just the north side of the canal, right behind some homes. That have you any concerns about the community response to that potential alignment?
Yeah. So what we do know that this is not the first time that there's been an attempt to try to close that gap. In fact, when the DOT was looking at the 595 improvements, that idea of trying to close up that gap came up. At that time, there was some resistance from the community, from the residential community that it immediately abuts on. So certainly when we're moving, we know that you'll have that community. I mean, it's people thoughts change. People become more accepting of stuff. In fact, they may become some of the main users of it. So we think it's worth moving forward again, trying to first, there's gonna be, if you move into the PD&E stage of this, you'll have to meet with that community. You'll have to get their thoughts, and I'm sure you're gonna find some that are still gonna be resistant, but there may be a more accommodating now, I think. So yeah, we know there are gonna be some challenges in trying to close that off. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Winston. Yeah, I don't have any more questions. I don't know if some of the committee members might have some other questions. I think we're good. I don't see any hands up, so.
I do have a question, a quick question. So what are the cities that are involved in this project?
So it's Plantation, Davie, Sunrise, and Fort Lauderdale. But we're also talking with, of course, Broward County, the Seminole Tribe, and of course, MPO. It's a joint project funded by the MPO and funded by MPO and being implemented through FDOT. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So our next presentation will be Copans Road Mobility Project Update. Let me just advance these slides. And Mr. Robert Lopez will be making the presentation today.
All right, everyone. My name is Fazal Qureshi from the Broward MPO. I'm going to be presenting with Robert Lopez from FDOT. This presentation is going to be about our Copens Road Mobility Improvements project, which for us has been a very innovative approach to implementing a multimodal facility along this corridor. Can you go next, Amanda? Yeah, so this project originated from our 0-7 corridor study that was adopted by our board in July of 2016. One thing that the study was looking for was how can we improve the multimodal access to State Road 7 since it was identified as a high transit or transit priority corridor. The different recommendations were broken up into short-term, mid-term, and long-term improvements. Through this study, many different projects were programmed out of it. For this one, there's been 8 different projects where all the improvements extended from doing intersection improvements to implementing bicycle and sidewalk improvements on various corridors that connect to State Road 7. And our main goal was to provide a safe and comfortable facility for people to be able to get to their final destinations along State Road 7, or be able to get State Road 7 to get to wherever else they need to go. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Robert Lopes from FDOT, who's the project manager.
All right, thank you, Fazal. Next slide, please.
Robert, there is something going on with your voice.
What?
It sounds like exhausted. It's very deep.
Not looking solitary. Let me switch to phone. If you want to take a 5-minute break or something, give me a chance to switch to phone then. Sorry about that.
It's pretty cool sounding voice, Robert, but it's not you.
You just let us know when you're connected and we will continue. Okay, no, that's why we have a little extra time today. Are the last 2 digits of your number 00?
Okay, does that sound a little bit more clear?
Sure does, sounds great.
Okay, let me raise the volume on my side. But that must have been very interesting. I guess you said just not me, huh? But anyway, I guess let's continue. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, as Fazal was speaking about, there was the State Road 7 transit study kind of identified short-term, mid-term, and long-term improvements. The short-term improvements were primarily geared towards safety improvements, intersection safety improvements, as Fazal mentioned earlier. And the mid-term improvements are primarily targeted at filling in the pedestrian bicycle network improvements, and particularly along the side streets connecting to State Road 7. You can see a list of the key side streets that we are looking to try to improve that mobility along State Road 7. Prospect Road, Copens Road, Kimberly Boulevard, Southwest 11th Street, which is part of Kimberly Boulevard, Northwest 26th, Northwest 19th, Northwest 16th Street, which is all bundled into the -7 project, 25th Street and 33rd Street, which is bundled into the -8, and Taft and Orange, which is bundled into the -9. And, you know, kind of one thing is you see on the slide there, one thing we kind of noticed when we started moving into the design effort of this was that one of those corridors was just a little bit different than the others, and that was Copens Road. You know, a lot of the other roads, Prospect, Kimberly, Southwest 11th, are just a little bit more mix of local traffic or two-lane roads. But Copens Road, as everyone knows, is a major arterial in Broward County and needed a little bit different attention. Next slide, please. Okay, and you know, what that attention means is, you know, we had to take a close look at what is the right type of facility design for Copens Road. And whenever we're considering what facility to select for a bicycle, for a mobility project, we usually stop and look at these 7 principles of bicycle network design. You know, first, well, before I kind of get into all of them, can we do the poll question real quick? I think as part of this, there's a poll question. Can we pull that up?
Yes, Robert, thank you so much. And the question is, of the 7 principles of bicycle network design, select the 3 that you feel are the most important for Copens Road. The options are safety, comfort, connectivity, directness, cohesion, attractiveness, unbroken flow.
Okay, are those numbers there, the tallies that have come in? Oh, that's as they're coming in, I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have right now 7 people, 8 people that participated, and it seems the most important is safety, following comfort, and then wait. Safety, comfort, unbroken flow.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess you can go back to the slide. That's actually very interesting that unbroken flow got such high attention as well. You know, kind of according to Federal Highway Administration, the 3 that are most commonly selected are the first 3 when asked that question. But yeah, it's very interesting. Means even specifically within this group, there's a lot of people that see unbroken flow as something that needs to be addressed probably within their area. But, you know, kind of go down the list a little bit, just a little bit. You know, safety, obviously everyone knows what safety, that's a top priority for all of us. Comfort, I think, does everyone know kind of the factors that are typically looked at when considering comfort on a bicycle facility? You know, that, I mean, comfort is basically another term for level of service of a bicycle facility. You know, and if you go through kind of the you know, the highway capacity formula and all that, you'll see the factors that affect comfort or level of service are kind of width, bicycle lane width, or separation from the roadway. Those 2 kind of are considered one. The pavement surface, the speed of the vehicles, percent trucks on the roadway, the volume of traffic on the roadway, and also adjacent parking on the roadway. You know, just a little information there. You know, connectivity is also kind of one of the big ones. You know, is there a bicycle facility at the start and end of creating kind of a logical termini? You know, and also part of connectivity is also having proper origin destination infrastructure in place on both sides to make it usable. Obviously, when you're riding a bike, there's usually sometimes at some point you might have to transfer to another mode, either to a bus or reaching your final destination and having to park bicycle. So origin destination is kind of part of connectivity as well. Directness, is this kind of the shortest link? Cohesion, I like to sometimes think is almost being the product of connectivity and directness. Attractiveness, thinking about attractiveness is kind of always a reminder that bicyclists are also choice riders, and we have to make the route attractive to them too. And unbroken flow, which I saw a lot of people vote, saw as very important. Unbroken flow is sometimes referring to what we call with vehicle traffic as delay. We call it delay with the vehicle traffic. With bicyclists, though, with vehicle traffic, we kind of look at the total delay, the summation of all the delays. With bicyclists, it's kind of a factor of both the total delay and number of delays, because people, it's not just the total delay, but how many times you have to start and stop. But that's just a little information of some of the principles we look at. Next slide, please. And now when you think about that, it kind of a little bit goes together when you see it graphically in this view here. You can see on the left a facility that mostly agrees with all those 7 principles. Conventional bike lanes work well with low speed 2-lane and low percent traffics. And on the side, on the right side, you see Copens Road. And, you can see some people might not agree that this facility would meet all 7 principles, specifically those first 3, specifically safety, comfort, and even attractiveness as well. And, kind of on the bottom right there, you can also see some of the numbers that kind of define Copens Road. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is kind of just the quick and dirty methodology, you could say, of how we go about then putting that together and selecting the right bicycle facility. And I believe we also have, before I go into it, I think we have another polling question with this one. Can we put that on screen now?
Yes, Robert. And the question is,
Okay.
Which facility do you think is the right fit for Copens Road? And the options are separated bike lane, shared use path, side path, buffer bike lane, conventional bike lane, shoulder shared lane. And right now we have 8 people participating in the poll. And with 10 people, we have the most popular answer is separated bike lanes. And the second most popular is buffer bike lanes.
Okay, that's actually really interesting there. Yeah, looks like the votes have kind of settled down there. That's really interesting. Separated bike lanes seem to be very overwhelming on this one. We can go back to the slide. And actually go to the next slide, please. Yeah, and I mean, I guess similar to how people spoke, that separated bike lane, buffered bike lane, those are, and the side path. Those are the 3 that, you would say, based on the geometry and the numbers, some of those grading criteria we spoke about, that you would try to target. You can see on the right there, kind of the quick selection method. You kind of look at speed and volume. You can see Copens Road is kind of way on the not way, but kind of mid to the top right hand corner. It's kind of at the point, if you're going to go with a bike lane, you'd want to make sure it's a wide enough buffer for it to be considered almost like a separation. You're looking for like 2 or 3 foot buffer at least to give you that, not just to give it a little bit of separation with the buffer. But also kind of another message that the diagram above, you know, when you see that that little blue bar about separation, you know, what that's kind of really also telling us a lot of times is to take the age and bicyclist experience and proficiency into account. And for Copens Road, that we had a lot of customers really put a focus on separation to give attention to those less experienced bicyclists on the road. You know, obviously the maximum separation takes you to things like a shared use path or a side path. But you know, anyone who's been involved in design and construction of those types of facilities kind of know that achieving that type of separation is very challenging, you know, and can get very, very expensive as well. Next slide, please. So I guess, you know, what we did, you know, we tried to look at all alternatives that we could try to apply here. You know, we didn't just go for the typical approach. We really took our time to try to look at all the alternatives. And while looking through the Broward County MPO design guidelines, we identified one more alternative that seemed to offer, you know, another choice, and that's a raised separated bike lane, almost like a hybrid of the side path and the separated bike lane. And it seemed to offer, you know, to be actually even more feasible to implement also. So it seemed to be a little bit, might be the right combination for this facility, for Copens Road, I mean. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is kind of just a little overview, the separated bicycle lane, you know, that we're trying to implement. You know, sometimes you'll hear people informally refer to it as a cycle track, although it's not really a cycle track in the true nature, but you'll hear people call it that. It provides, we saw that it provides the most comfortable on-street environment for people who are interested in bicycling, but more concerned about riding directly adjacent to traffic, and possibly to also target attractiveness, you know, and while still making it feasible to implement. You can see some of the design criteria that we try to follow, considerations. The width of the bikeway to still be at least 4 feet while it's adjacent to the sidewalk rather than to the vehicle lanes. The width of the pedestrian zone, we try to keep 5 to 6 feet. Minimum width of separation from the roadway will be 3 feet. That's a little bit less than what we go for with a shared use path or even a side path. So a little bit of a hybrid there. And at intersections, lane width of the roadway is, as you can see on the right there, is being reduced to 11 foot for through lanes and 10.5 foot for the turn lanes to try to keep the consistency of the bicycle and bicycle facility. And the bikeway will be separated from the roadway, but adjacent to the sidewalk, as we just said. Next slide, please. You know, here is an example of some of the design priorities that we had to work through to try to deliver the best possible mix. One of them is drainage. You can see with drainage, we tried to make sure we are proportionately increasing drainage capacity. You can see we will be reducing the shoulder accommodation to do this, but the slope is still 1 to 3. You know, that's still considered safe and actually still considered recoverable. So, I mean, you can see the drainage was a high priority. You can see the existing and proposed typical section of Copens Road on the bottom. You know, also French drains will be added at locations when there is space constraints. Next slide, please. And you can see here a summary of some of these priorities and how this hybrid design differs from a shared use path or from a separated bike lane. You know, kind of going down the list of some of the critical design criteria we try to meet for bicycle facilities for a shared use path. You know, cross slope, we will be able to meet that even with this design speed. Now, this is one area that is, again, a little bit of a hybrid. Typical both bike lanes and shared use path are usually designed for a 30-mile-per-hour design speed. For this facility, we will be using an 18-mile-per-hour, which is still very high. I can tell you, you know, once you get above 18 miles per hour, you're basically in the competitive bicyclist speed. You know, drop-off criteria will meet all criteria. Graded areas, as showed you earlier, we kind of made a little bit of a priority of drainage over the graded area. So a little bit sacrificing some of the operations, but prioritizing drainage. Grades will meet. Horizontal clearance will meet horizontal on the side designated for bicyclists, but you can see kind of in that, even that little rendering there, a lot of those power lines will be still pretty much right adjacent to the sidewalk, which should be okay since we're designating which side the bicyclists are to ride on. The radii, similar to the design speed, will meet 18 miles per hour. Separation, we will be using 3-foot separation as our minimum instead of 4-foot. You know, I'll remind you, it's not that much of a difference. A shared use path based on the Florida Green Book requires a 4-foot separation, or based on the FDM requires a 4-foot separation. All other criteria, though, below will meet criteria for, you know, what would be considered a shared use path. Next slide. And this project is in close coordination with Broward County, because you can see on the left is the MPO's project that DOT is implementing, 429576-5, which interfaces with Broward County project 104-518, right about at Northwest 49th Terrace. As I said, we've been in very, very close cooperation with Broward County on this, and where the two projects will meet specifically. Next slide, please. And you can see a little bit of a schedule broken down there of the two projects. You know, Broward County is supposedly going to be going first, but there probably will be a little bit overlap. Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think switched quickly from phone to computer, but as long as you can all still hear me. So there's a quick overview, you know, of the schedule. Like I said, Broward County will be kind of going first, and we'll be following them with a little bit of an overlap. Next slide, please. You know, here's just a quick summary, everything we spoke about, what improvements for, oh, I think you missed one slide, what the improvements for Copens Road will look like. It, you know, essentially for most people, it'll look like a sidewalk widening project, taking the sidewalk from 5 foot to 10 foot to accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists with drainage improvements. There will be landscaping impacts. Some landscaping will be removed, but that will be we're going to try to minimize that. Most of that will be landscaping that's right in between the facility and the roadway. The landscaping adjacent to the sidewalk side will be preserved as much as possible. Pedestrian signal improvements at the crossings, and relocation of signing that would be in conflict with the facility. Last slide, please. Next slide, please. And yeah, that's kind of an overview overview of the improvements we'll be doing on Copens Road. You know, it's been an interesting project. It's definitely this is definitely a project where I feel like we all stakeholders kind of together stopped and really together tried to come up with the right solution for this corridor. I think there was one last polling question at the end, or I think
Yes, there is one question. Let me share my screen right now.
we can do the polling question and then open it up to if anyone has any questions or comments.
So the question is, looking at the trade-offs, do you feel we are hitting the mark by meeting the 7 principles of bicycle network design for Copens Road? The options are yes, no, yes, but could be better. And if you have any comments, you can use the comments button and you can just provide your comment. Or you want to raise your hand, that would be awesome too. So far we have 7 people participating in the poll.
Okay. Oh, we got a few comments there. That'd be interesting. Any comments come in the chat box?
No comments yet.
No comments yet.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that we got a no. Really.
I mean, we can actually open this up to you know, if anyone has any questions for any part of the project, you can put those in the comment box right now as well.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Will you be using the combination bike and ped crossing signs at all the stop signs that on the approach to Copens?
The combination bike and ped crossing sign. I'll have to. I'm not sure about that.
It's W11-15.
W11-15. I'll have to get back with you on that. We're kind of just approaching our constructability submittal or phase 2 submittal for this project, so we haven't gone into depth. I know those crossings, like if you remember that rendering I showed you of how the crossing design was with the bike lane crossing adjacent to the pedestrian crossing, that is something that is still being discussed for the 2 projects, and I'll make sure to keep to mention this about the W11-15 sign.
I think it's just worth including because there's a lot of folks that roll through stop bars, and I would hate for a bicyclist to be going 18 miles an hour and T-bone a vehicle that has rolled through the stop sign and blocked the crossing.
Yeah, that's also something that was discussed many times at the beginning of thinking about this design, that the bicyclist will have to operate as a pedestrian basically and stop at those crossing points for vehicles, and I assume that's what the W11-15 sign kind of guides the bicyclist to do.
I think it just designates a combination bike ped crossing.
Okay. Yeah, there probably will also, in addition to that, we probably even will have stop signs for the bicycle on the side there, but that is something, the signing is something we'll be looking at, but I'll definitely make sure we take that into account, possibly, the combination sign. I see another hand up. Azita?
Yes. I was wondering, what's the total right-of-way along Copens in this area?
It's, I can pull that up in one moment for you, actually. Let me see if I can find it here. It's pretty wide. It's a decent amount of right-of-way, but the challenge is, you know, maintaining drainage on the facility. Sure. While making use of that right-of-way.
So is this an option that can be considered in the future for complete streets applications?
Definitely. I think this is definitely something that we'll be looking at going forward on a lot of projects.
For sure, and also this project is going to help lay down the framework to be able to incorporate this into future ones. You know, with the design exceptions that we use, some of the geometric design standards that were used, and even some of the signing and pavement markings that we're going to use on this project, just to show that there is acceptance for this type of facility, even though there may not be a specific standard for it, but there's plenty of guidance out there, such as like NACDO and some of these other manuals that are out there, you know, such as even our complete street guideline.
Yeah, actually, I just got the, it's a 120-foot right-of-way, and the center line is pretty much right in the middle. So it's 60 foot on each side. You know, one thing, keep in mind, the median itself is 38 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
So there's already a lot of right-of-way being taken up by the median.
Right. Thank you.
We do have another question from Ken.
Ken Reinhardt is looking to ask a question. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I have a question about connectivity. For this project, to what extent are desired destinations going to be better connected?
Well, we are taking the time to look at improving, like I said, some of that infrastructure at transit stops specifically. So, I mean, I'll kind of also say this was the big need for this project originated from the State Road 7 transit study. So there was a strong focus on making sure there is that intermodal connectivity from bicycle to transit being implemented as part of this project. There was one few of the specific stops closer to the east side of the project that we are providing transit amenities for, and we're actually in the process right now looking at you know, expanding it as much as we can throughout the corridor where cost feasible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. Thanks so much. Great questions, great presentation, and the information to contact Mr. Kresge and Mr. Lopes is on your screen right now. And now we are going to welcome Alexander Esposito with Circuit to discuss the Hollywood shuttle service. Go ahead.
Great, thanks for having me here. Okay, I see a transcript going through. I wanted to make sure everyone could hear me. I'm excited to be here. I'm also with my business partner, Jason Bagley, and we have Azita and Andrea on the call here from Hollywood. So we're here today to talk a little bit more about the importance of the last mile. We'll share a little bit about what we've done in Hollywood and in South Florida, but I think a lot of what we'll speak about is really in the spirit of multimodal options and using the last mile as an important connector piece to other forms of transit, with the goal to really get everyone out of their cars. So at Circuit, we're an electric vehicle service provider. Yeah, so I'm here with Jason, Andrea, and I heard Azita is also on the call. And so thank you guys for joining. But starting with the last mile, it's a pretty hot button issue. And simply put, it's moving people in goods short distances is expensive, problematic, and pollutive. Public transportation can be hard to get to for some. Insufficient parking can cause people to cause problems with parking at transportation or using other forms. Not everybody can walk, or the weather doesn't always permit walking or biking. And paid rides can be really expensive when you look at short trips. And so because of that, we all live in the car culture that we live in today. And that's really where we're focused, is working on those shorter trips so that we don't have 91% of American commuters driving themselves to work every day. And that car culture is really problematic in that it's caused more congestion today than we've ever seen before. Traffic's not fun for anybody, and it's bad for our cities, bad for local economies, bad for the environment, and harmful to our quality of life. And amazingly, a third of all vehicle trips in the US are 2 miles or less. So it's about 125 billion trips a year. And we believe if we can reduce those, then we can promote the utilization of other forms of transportation and ultimately just get people out of their own single occupancy vehicles or out of paid single occupancy vehicles. So at Circuit, which is one of the many solutions out there, we're an all-electric last mile shuttle service. So what that means is we work with cities and private developers and community organizations to build on-demand last mile shuttle services. So we like to think that we're taking the user experience and on-demand features that the riders have grown to like about some of the rideshare services with the quality control, the job creation, cost savings, and sustainability benefits that cities often look for in their own types of services. So if you're a rider and you're anywhere within our coverage area, you'll see on the phone, the bottom left there, you can get a ride and it's free, it's pooled, and it's driven by a local driver. And then we use the data to make the system smarter and work with different partners to fund the service. So it's either $3 or free to ride for the rider. And so one of the reasons this solution has been successful is that we're very focused on what we're good at. And as we all know, in transportation, there's really no catch-all solution or silver bullet. And so we'll be the first to say that if you have a large group of people moving from one area or one city to another city, then a train or a bus is probably the best way to do that and to reduce the number of cars on the road. But when you have a lot of people going different areas within a small, manageable coverage area at different times, and you have more of a scattered type of scenario, that's where you need to look at other types of last mile solutions, whether it be working with us or scooters, bikes, walking, bike lanes, other types of options to make that short range mobility easier so that we get people out of their cars and we encourage those local connections. So we're able to do these by creating public-private partnerships. And it's been great working with the City of Hollywood, the CRA, more recently Pompano, and other cities in South Florida, as well as in New York and California. And so by working closely with the partners and building custom solutions, again, we're combining the input from the local stakeholders with a service that is fun and enjoyable for the riders. And so we've learned a lot over the years from the scooter companies and from other forms of transit, where if you make something easy to use, then more people use it and ultimately less people are using their single occupancy vehicles. Another thing we've been able to do is work with advertising partners. This has helped to reduce the cost of our programs while also making it more of an interactive experience for our passengers. Recently in Hollywood and in working with the team there, we saw ridership fall as a result of COVID. We had to put in certain safety procedures. There's partitions between the rows. All of the drivers are cleaning the vehicles regularly. We're also requiring PPE. But what was really exciting in Hollywood was the folks at the city reached out, because with ridership slowing, we also had another problem where senior citizens were waiting on long lines to get groceries. And so during the height of the pandemic, about 10 months ago, we started working closely with the city and Feeding South Florida, and adjusted the service so that some of the vehicles were actually delivering groceries to senior citizens in the area. So just another thing, as you look at sort of the last mile space, it's not always just moving people, but moving goods can be problematic as well. And so by having a more flexible service like this, we were able to make the best use of our time. And Hollywood has been a great success. A lot of that, I'm looking forward to everyone's questions, and we'll let Azita and Andrea hop in here and Jason, but there's a few photos there of the grocery deliveries and the PPE. We have a great team of local drivers who have really almost doubled as brand ambassadors to the area, helping tourists get around, reducing the demand for parking at the beaches, encouraging those local connections. And we've been able to do all of this at a significantly lower cost than a traditional shuttle. Again, we're not competing with shuttles. We think they're great when they're used for longer distances. But in this case, it was widely adopted by the community. We saw ridership almost double what the previous shuttle was doing, and we were able to do that at a significantly lower cost, all the while not burning any gas and doing this with fully electric vehicles and a local workforce. Then 2 weeks ago, we were fortunate to kick off a service in Pompano Beach, a little smaller in scale than the operation in Hollywood, but it's already picked up quickly. We're going to get into the cost per rider a little bit, but speaking this morning, and we're already seeing a cost per rider down near $4 in Pompano, and that's really just due to people liking the service and there being high demand. That's also due to the fact that we're focused on those short trips. So we're not trying to compete with buses, trains, longer range rideshare options for those longer trips. We're seeing a high frequency of riders for quick, short rides, again, establishing those local connections. And so this is a topic we shared a little bit more on during the Safe Streets Summit, but I thought it would be relevant here too. And so we talk about the service being fun, and riding a bike is fun, and riding a scooter is fun. But I think it's often looked at as a novelty. And there's a video here you can look at another time, but by making something fun, you encourage people to use it. And in this example, which was provided by Volkswagen years ago, initially you saw everybody taking the escalator, and then they turned the stairs into a piano that made noise when you went up and down it. Sure enough, a few days later, almost everybody was taking the stairs. And so I'm not proposing we turn every bike lane into a piano, but I think there's a lesson to be learned where if the passenger enjoyment is such an important factor, or the rider's enjoyment, or the safety level that a biker feels, that it's often overlooked when we think about costs and timelines and other features where this becomes something that's cosmetic, when in reality it's really a key component to encouraging utilization. And it's not just fun Volkswagen piano stairs. I mean, if you look at some of a number of research pieces, one that we looked at was the theory of routine mode choices by Dr. Schneider. And he looks at why people make the choices they do when looking at their transportation options. The other ones, availability, cost, convenience, those are frequently looked at, but enjoyment is one of those top 7. And I think I would argue that that's one that normally gets kicked to the side as a nice to have, when it's actually a really valuable factor in considering your mode choices. And then we took this a step further, and it doesn't look here like the charts made their way over to the slide, but when we look at transportation costs, it's really about how many people rode it and the cost per rider. And I think so often you'll see, how do we make this less expensive? And typically people look at the numerator of this equation. We can try to save money on this or that, or we can try to increase fares. When if you're getting more people to ride it, you're ultimately doing the same thing. And in the example below that didn't make it, we looked at, if you increase a fare by 50 cents and you see a 25% discount reduction in ridership because of that more expensive price, then you're actually seeing an increase in your cost per rider by increasing the fare. So even though you're recouping more money, you're reducing the demand and in turn making it more expensive on a cost per rider basis. So if you could do other things like adding Wi-Fi to a bus, making the bus stops a little more fun, making the bike lanes safer, then you can encourage more people to use the service without charging them more money or without cutting other things, and ultimately reduce that cost per rider. And so, this is how we work with transit customers. And I think that this is something that, you guys probably, many people in the audience see regularly, but I think I can't stress enough the importance of not looking for a silver bullet and finding, what are the real problems that can be addressed and what are the various ways that we can address them and how can we tie that all together. You know, we play really well in the sandbox with scooters, for example, a very different service. But we've seen situations where when they were first introduced in San Diego, we actually saw ridership go up. And we looked at that and said, well, that's great. Then people might have scooted on their way to dinner, and then when it got dark, they didn't feel comfortable scooting home, so they took a circuit. And so if the end result is less cars on the road, then that's good for us, and it's good for the cities that we operate in. We're an impact-driven company, and I think impact is a really broad term, but transportation, you know, as a whole is such an important and impactful piece of any community. And I think it's so exciting to see the initiatives with what's going on Safe Streets and making our cities more walkable, more easy to get around, and really reducing emissions. You know, the transportation is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions globally. And cities contribute about almost 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. So the work that all of us here are doing is incredibly important as we look towards reducing vehicles on the road, electrifying the vehicles that are on the road. And I would argue that it should go in that order. And the impact that has on the environment really resonates a lot further beyond just, you know, the one downtown neighborhood that's being discussed. And I've said this before, but you know, we're very much less cars is really our focus, which is, I guess, seemingly ironic in that we provide cars, but we do provide shared rides, and we do use the data from the app to make sure that we're only running the number of cars that are necessary and not driving around empty seats. And so, you know, ultimately, we believe that the future of urban mobility is connected, shared, eventually autonomous and fully electric. And it's been exciting to work with the city of Hollywood to really make big steps towards that future, and then prepare for new technologies as they come about. And I think this fits really well into, you know, how we see the future of cities, more walkable, more connected, and more electrified. And so I'll take a deep breath here, and there's again, Jason, Andrea, and Azita on the call that can probably help answer some other questions, and happy to share more about, you know, what we've done in Hollywood or any questions that might have come up along the way.
Excuse me, this is Amanda. I just want to give you an opportunity. I just made some adjustments to that slide where the numbers had been removed. So I just want to give you an opportunity to look at that if you want to speak to that. Just
sure, yeah, and yeah. So this is just an example, and so what was used here was a demand elasticity. That was, it's very hard to, as many people on this call probably know better than I, but measuring the elasticity of demand as it relates to price in public transit is a hard number to pin down. If, for example, there was recently an accident on a bus and then you raise the fare on a bus, you're going to see a bigger impact on demand because of safety issues. So there's a lot of variables that go into that equation. But for the purpose of this example, kind of a middle of the road type of estimate is that by increasing the price, the percentage increase in price will cause about a 0.5 percentage increase in demand. And so in this example, you'll see on the left, we increased the price, the fare for the rider by 50 cents or 50%, resulting in a 25% decrease in total riders. And so the next column here, you'll say that, you know, if city, agency, developer, whoever it might be that are paying for these services, they saw that the net cost went down by that $25,000 because they were able to recoup more in fares. However, when you look at the rider demand impact and you actually look at that cost per rider, by increasing that fare by 50 cents, you actually made it more expensive on a cost per rider. If you being the city, the developer, the transportation provider, you actually made it about 33% more on a cost per rider basis by trying to get 50 cents more per rider. Where on the right, other situations where and we can kind of say, how did we get the 10% rider increase? I think those are some of the initiatives, like I mentioned, adding Wi-Fi to a bus, which I understand adds costs. It could have been as simple as painting the bus stop. So it's not necessarily impacting operating expenses. But having that small 10% increase in ridership actually reduced the cost per rider by 9% here, whereas adding the fare. So, long way of saying that, adding more to the fare doesn't necessarily always shake out as you might think at first pass.
Great, thank you. And do you want to just possibly give an opportunity to your colleagues to make a statement here before we go on to any questions?
Yeah, Jason and Azita, and yeah, it's an open floor.
This is Andrea from the City of Hollywood. As you heard him describe in the presentation, Circuit has really played a vital role in the city's micro transit, and we're looking at different ways to start to connect that micro transit to some of the other transportation opportunities that the city has.
I think Andrea might have cut off a little bit.
I think so too. Zita, would you like to share anything or open up the floor?
I don't know what Andrea was going to say, but the city has really enjoyed working with Circuit, and they've been a great company. They really, like Alex said, pulled their weight during the pandemic, and we are part of we're working with them through a contract, 3-year contract. So this is going to be about to renew the contract for the 3rd year.
Hey, this is Jason here. I think I met with Andrea last week as we presented to the commission our last year's results and just talking through some ways that we can connect and maybe enhance the service. So I think her main point was we're looking at being able to bridge some other connections to some larger transit options and find some creative ways to really increase that ridership, although hate to say we're almost at capacity, but when we're doing 11 to 14,000 riders a month, we're getting to that point where it's, we're very busy. However, we're looking for some enhancements and some efficiencies there that we can continue to increase the ridership, but also enhance the experience.
James, I see you've got your hand up. Go ahead. James Cromer, go ahead.
I can't see myself. I want to make sure I'm getting the right background. Hey, James Cromer here with the Broward MPO. This is maybe a question more for the city staff. Now that the county voters have passed the surtax and Broward County Transit is paying most of the costs of running shuttle circulators, how does that influence, what are the factors that city staff looks at in making some decisions about where to make investments?
Actually, we're working with the county right now to put together a package for the community shuttles throughout the city. And we see this as a complement to that system. Our routes are going to connect to the areas that are hotspots, if you will, for the circuit. And so it'll allow people, for example, from the west side to come to the east side. And then, if they need to make a stop and then from there go somewhere that the community shuttle is not going, then they can connect with the circuit. So we see the two as complementing each other, but not necessarily replacing, because this one is on demand and it can go anywhere, whereas the community shuttle is not.
Okay. And then the funding for this circuit or your on-demand system is your local city funds as opposed to the county funds for the shuttle circular system?
Correct. Yes. It's been
Okay.
funded by the city and CRA.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mhm.
Can we go to the Mentimeter questions, Amanda? Can we go to that now? Or Stephanie, can we just jump into the Mentimeter questions that we had, or do we have any more questions from the audience?
Yes, I just need to be able to share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So we have some questions. And the first question from Circuit that we have is, what modes of transportation do you usually use to go from 0 to 4 miles? And we already have some answers. It seems the number one option is by car. The second one is walk by or scooter, and the third one is taxi, Uber, or Lyft. And we have 8 people participating. So I would say that maybe the reason why my car is popular is because of, lighting. Sometimes you want to go biking or walking, but at night it's a bit tricky. Imagine crossing Broward Boulevard at Andrews Avenue. It's not that safe. Okay, so let's go to the other question. What most valuable to you? No, what is most valuable to you when choosing your mode of transportation? And the options that we have are how much it costs, how long it takes, how direct it is, who's driving, operating it, how safe it is, the passenger experience in the ride, knowing what the schedule or what time will be. Okay. Okay, so it seems the passenger experience in the ride is important, knowing what the schedule or what time will be, how long it takes, and how much it costs. Those are factors that are important for people to choose what mode of transportation. And the last question that we have is, what are the biggest factors to using public transportation, like buses, trains, tri-rail, fixed route community buses? I'm submitting my answer as well. It's not frequent enough. There are indirect or hard to get to. It takes too long. So those are the main reasons. And we have 12 to 13 people participating in the poll. Perfect. And I think those are the only questions that we have. Yes. Okay, I turn it over to you, Amanda.
So our next meeting is scheduled for July 12th. Historically, that meeting has been canceled, so I'm not sure right now if we will be having that meeting, but please keep it on your schedules for the time being, and we will let you know if we decide to cancel that meeting and remove a calendar hold from your outlooks. And thanks so much. That will be that will conclude our meeting today. I apologize for any audio issues I may have had. Ricardo, if you'd like to say anything before we conclude the meeting, I just want to thank everyone that participated. Stephanie, thanks for your presentations and thanks for running the Mentimeter. Ms. Doris Span, thank you for your moving and important information about Vision Zero and Tamarack. Mr. Harris and Fazil, awesome information about the Greenway connections and I-595. Robert, Mr. Lopes, a very in-depth and interesting results of the Mentimeter versus your guidance and your design for your project. I thought that was really great. And thank you to the City of Hollywood and Alex and company for telling us about the usefulness of that service and how it is filled a need in the City of Hollywood. And we really appreciate that.
I think you said it all, Amanda. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. It was a great meeting. Get information. We'll send the presenters. We'll send you some of the responses. So hopefully, the information you gathered today can help you with your efforts. But thank you again. Great presentations. I really enjoyed this meeting. Thank you again. And for the CSAC members, hopefully we'll see you guys in July. Then next meeting in July. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.